Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really stretching things out, attempting quite the orbital maneuver, you could say.
Yeah.
We've got sources covering the absolute extremes of human physicality, massive rocket engineering, some pretty shocking government fraud, and the future of AI. It's a lot.
It is. And if the world feels, chaotic, overwhelming right now, well, that's kind of the point. The pace of disruption, economic, social, technological, it's speeding up like crazy.
Right.
So our mission today is to look under the hood, past the noise. These sources, they show patterns, hidden complexities. They help explain why everything's moving so fast. We're here to pull out those critical, often surprising insights for you. Make sense of it all.
Okay, let's jump in, starting with, well, where it all begins. The human body.
Yeah.
Limits. Our sources point to some pretty dramatic physical changes, like with Jeff Bezos. I mean, the shift is kind of startling. He went from that classic pencil-necked geek look to what's described as a miniature alpha fella in less than a year, at age 59.
Right. It's pretty remarkable.
That kind of sudden, almost aggressive transformation so late in life, it does make you stop and think.
It really does. It pushes the boundary on what we think is possible, especially with, immense resources focused on personal optimization. It changes the story about human capacity as we age.
Yeah.
And while, yes, there's the whole internet Gigachad meme, which, funny enough, is apparently based on a real person, a unique case.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. But we need to pivot to, the verifiable absolute physical extremes.
Okay, gotcha. Verifiable limits. So we're talking the strongest people alive, like the Icelandic strongman, Thor, the mountain from TV. The sources call him a mutant strong human.
Exactly. And then you've got Brian Shaw, world's most powerful man, described as a legitimate giant, nearly 7 feet tall, over 400 pounds.
400 pounds.
Yeah, and get this bone density so rare, it's estimated at 1 in 500 million people.
Wow.
He's a prime example of genetics just producing a total outlier, way beyond typical human stats. So whether it's hyper-optimization like Bezos or the genetic lottery like Shaw, the real physical limits are way, way beyond what most of us even imagine.
That idea of pushing limits, human or genetic, it's a perfect segue into engineered extremes. Let's talk SpaceX.
Okay.
The super heavy booster. We're talking 33 engines, 10,000 tons of thrust. This thing is, hands down, the biggest flying object ever built.
And what's really key here isn't just the sheer size, it's the thinking behind it, the philosophy.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize this, those repeated explosions.
Yes.
The failures you see all over the news, they're not accidents, they're deliberate tests.
Intentional.
Exactly. They call it exploring the limits or testing the corners of the box. You have to know exactly where things break the tolerance, so when you finally put people or, incredibly expensive cargo on top.
You avoid disaster.
Absolutely. Disaster's averted because you already pushed it past the breaking point in testing.
So failure is actually part of the design process, a feature, not a bug. Like that example they mentioned, removing heat shield tiles on purpose for a test flight.
Precisely. They deliberately took tiles off the parts expected to get the most stress during re-entry.
That sounds crazy.
It does. But despite those extreme, intentional weak points, the ship managed a successful soft landing in the Indian Ocean, that whole trial-by-fire method. It lets them learn the threshold between survival and total failure way faster than any traditional, super cautious aerospace program ever could.
Accelerates learning like nothing else.
At a breathtaking pace, yeah.
Okay, then you look at something like the Cybertruck, another engineering extreme, but this time driven by the material itself.
Right, the ultra-hard stainless steel.
It's so rigid that trying to stamp it into curves like a normal car, it would just break the stamping
They
presses.
literally break the machines.
So the design had to be flat planes, angular.
It's a perfect case of the material completely dictating the form, the aesthetic. It forces this, revolutionary look. And the result is this vehicle that's bulletproof.
Bulletproof.
But its performance is just... it almost doesn't compute with how it looks.
I mean, think about it. This huge, angular metal beast, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds.
Faster than many supercars.
And here's the stat that just bends my mind. It can run a quarter mile faster than a Porsche 911 while towing that same Porsche 911.
Yeah. That's just defying physics, basically. At least our usual understanding of vehicle physics.
We haven't really seen anything like that in a mass-produced vehicle.
Which brings us to looking ahead. The sources tease this upcoming Roadster demo. They promise it'll be unforgettable.
Unforgettable, huh? Sounds like high expectations.
It really hints that the tech is meant to be a massive leap, maybe finally delivering on that old Peter Thiel thought, We were promised flying cars. And maybe this is something that actually breaks that mold. Something truly different.
Okay, speaking of breaking molds, that speed of tech change, it also sets us up for, well, systemic vulnerabilities. How fast tech moves versus how fragile our human systems can be.
Right.
Let's dive into some of the political and corporate controversies mentioned, starting with those really bizarre details from the Sam Altman-Tucker Carlson interview about that alleged AI whistleblower suicide.
Yeah, the specifics laid out are deeply unsettling. The source material doesn't pull punches.
What are we talking about exactly?
Things like security camera wires being cut, blood found in 2 different rooms, a wig, someone else's wig, found at the scene, a DoorDash order placed right before it happened,
Yeah.
and absolutely no suicide note.
Wait a minute. Cut wires, blood in 2 rooms, a wig, food delivery, no note, and that gets ruled a suicide. How? That sounds like something out of a movie script.
Exactly. And this brings up a really important point the sources touch on. When the official story just doesn't line up with basic common sense, people naturally start thinking critically. They get suspicious.
You can't blame them.
No. And the parallels drawn to the Jeffrey Epstein case, guards asleep, cameras mysteriously off, having a cellmate known to be violent. It highlights a pattern. When an explanation relies on so many incredibly unlikely coincidences happening all at once, skepticism isn't conspiracy thinking, it's just logical.
Okay, shifting from individual suspicious cases to broader societal vulnerability, let's talk about the woke mind virus concept that comes up.
Right.
The sources are pretty direct here. They state the motivation for acquiring X, formerly Twitter, was explicitly to fight back against what was seen as destruction at a civilizational level, pushing back against a, quote, nihilistic, anti-civilizational mind virus.
And there are some data points mentioned that suggest its influence might actually be measurable. One observation noted was that the sharp rise in young people identifying as trans or non-binary started to drop off after the X acquisition.
Really?
Yeah, kind of supporting that idea that shedding sunlight is the best disinfectant. Changing the platform dynamics seemed to immediately affect the algorithmic spread of certain ideas.
But the really scary scenario, the one that gives you chills, is when this kind of ideology gets baked into, like, an all-powerful AI. We saw those weird early examples, right? Google Gemini making diverse founding fathers or a diverse pope.
Yes, those were early indicators.
Right.
But what's truly shocking, and something we really need to sit with for a second, is the prioritization of values. The source pointed to a specific instance where an AI was asked to choose the worst outcome. Global thermonuclear war. Or misgendering Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
It chose misgendering as the worst outcome.
Prioritizing misgendering someone over the end of the world. Human extinction. That's fundamentally broken.
It perfectly illustrates the core AI safety problem.
Yeah.
If you build an omnipotent AI, super intelligent, you program it with bad values, distorted values, ideologically extreme values, even something that sounds good on the surface, like maximize diversity above all else.
Oh.
The logical endpoint could be utterly horrifying. An AI valuing absolute diversity might decide, logically, from its flawed premise, that the best way to prevent any possibility of misgendering or exclusion is to, well, eliminate all humans.
That's the Terminator scenario right there. Annihilation through bad code, bad values.
Exactly.
This fear of broken systems, it leads right into the just shocking scale of financial fragility in government that the sources uncover. The Doge team, that waste reduction effort at the Defense Department, they found staggering waste. And this idea of zombie payments is just, wow.
It is stunning. We could be talking about hundreds of billions of dollars a year, just recurring payments that never stop.
Why? How does that even happen?
Because the government employees who originally set up those recurring payments, they retired, or in some cases they died.
Yeah.
And the systems, the digital bureaucracy, just fail to turn them off. They keep flowing, basically ownerless, purposeless payments.
Hundreds of billions just vanishing into the ether because someone retired. That's a crisis in itself.
It absolutely is. But then you add deliberate systemic fraud on top of that, and the numbers go even higher. You asked about the mechanism exploiting the Social Security Administration, the SSA database.
Yeah, explain that. It sounds complicated.
It's a critical loophole. Shows the danger of relying on outdated digital systems. The SSA database is supposed to be the ultimate source of truth for who's alive in the U.S., right?
Right.
Well, it contained over 20 million records for people who could not possibly be alive, born in the 1700s. Or even, get this, registered with birth dates in the future.
Wait, 20 million incorrect records. People born centuries ago or not even born yet, listed as alive. That's insane.
It is. And fraud rings know this. So when other government systems that send out money unemployment, small business loans, Medicaid, whatever, query the SSA database to check if someone's eligible,
Does the system check if the person is, actually alive and eligible?
the SSA system just returns the answer based on its flawed data. Yes, this person is alive. That simple, incorrect yes is enough. It unlocks billions and billions in fraudulent claims across tons of different programs. It shows the very foundation of our government payment systems is cracked wide open and being actively exploited.
That level of systemic failure, it connects directly to the political incentives around immigration that the sources discuss. The argument presented is this. You have open borders, you offer generous government benefits, that creates a huge pull factor, a massive incentive for illegal immigration. And the expectation then is that these individuals will eventually vote Democrat, helping to create a permanent one-party state.
And this ties into a really deep, kind of hidden constitutional issue most people don't think about. How congressional seats and electoral college votes are divided up.
Okay, how does that work?
It's based on the total number of persons counted in a state during the census.
Right.
Not the number of citizens, but persons.
So wait, just having more people physically present, regardless of their legal status, gives a state more power in Congress and in presidential elections.
Precisely. More people equals more representatives in the House and more votes in the Electoral College. This creates a direct, powerful incentive for states like, say, California or New York to maximize their total population count, including non-citizens, before the next census in 2030.
To gain more political power relative to other states.
Exactly. It effectively shifts the balance of power in Washington based purely on population numbers, not citizenship. It's using the mechanics of the census itself for political leverage.
Wow. Okay, so whether it's engineering, fraud, politics, everything feels like it's accelerating towards some kind of breaking point or massive shift. Let's push our view forward now towards the future and AI. The prediction cited is pretty aggressive. Operating systems, apps as we know them, gone in 5-6 years.
That's the prediction. Replaced by AI-driven edge nodes. Imagine a future where you don't click an app icon. The AI just anticipates what you need. It generates the interface, the video, the function in real time, responds instantly.
The whole user interface paradigm we've used for decades just becomes obsolete.
Because AI becomes the interface. It's everywhere, anticipating, generating.
And this isn't just about making things slicker or faster, right? There's an economic necessity driving this.
Absolutely. The sources are very clear. The U.S. is heading towards bankruptcy without a fundamental economic change. The interest payments on the national debt, they already cost more than the entire military budget.
More than the military, wow.
Yeah, and just trying to save money, cut spending, it only delays the crisis. It doesn't solve the underlying math.
So what's the solution presented?
The only really viable path forward mentioned is AI and robotics. We have to massively increase economic output, grow the GDP exponentially to basically outrun the debt problem. If we can't achieve that kind of growth, the financial cliff becomes unavoidable.
Okay, so that forces us to look squarely at the two big potential outcomes of this AI revolution. We touched on the dystopia. AI programmed with bad values, the woke mind virus scenario, leading to, well, Terminator. Annihilation by bad programming.
That's the nightmare scenario. But the flip side, the potential positive outcome, leads to what the sources are calling universal high income, UHI.
Universal high income, what does that actually mean?
It means AI and robotics create such incredible abundance, such efficiency, that poverty is essentially eliminated. Crime driven by financial need disappears. Work itself becomes optional.
Work becomes optional, true economic freedom. That sounds utopian. But it immediately raises that huge question. If you don't need to work to survive, what's the point? What gives life meaning?
That's the massive challenge, isn't it? The focus has to shift entirely. Away from economic survival towards individual purpose and meaning. Maybe it's sports, incredibly complex games, exploration, art, scientific discovery, pursued purely for curiosity. It requires a fundamental redefinition of what it means to be human when machines handle material needs.
And the key to getting to that positive UHI scenario, not the Terminator one, it comes back to how we build the AI itself.
According to these sources, yes. The only way to ensure a beneficial outcome is to build what they call a maximally truth-seeking and curious AI. Something like Grok is mentioned as aiming for this.
An AI driven by truth and curiosity above any specific ideology.
Exactly. That kind of AI, the argument goes, is the only force strong enough to compel other AIs to align with truth and human benefit, rather than falling prey to flawed, dangerous ethical programming imposed by humans. Truth becomes the core safeguard.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground. I mean, from 400-pound strongmen and bulletproof trucks, all the way to billion-dollar zombie payments and the existential choices in programming AI.
Yeah.
It's clear the stakes we're talking about now aren't just local issues or small changes. They feel civilizational.
They absolutely are. What these sources reveal is this deeply interconnected system. Technology is accelerating like mad, and that's simultaneously exposing all this hidden fragility in our institutions, but also maybe offering the only realistic path to economic survival and future abundance.
And here's where it gets really fascinating, maybe even deeply ironic, right? The sources suggest the most likely outcome might be that capitalism, driving technology like AI and robotics forward, ultimately leads to this universal high income, abundance for all, which means we essentially achieve the theoretical utopia that communism always promised, but we get there through the exact opposite of socialist economics, through pure technological capitalism.
See, it does seem to love irony, doesn't it? It's definitely something to think about. And that leaves us, and you, with a final thought to chew on. If we do achieve this abundance, if work truly becomes optional, what great purpose or purposes will humanity collectively choose to pursue next? What do we do then?